Welcome to the Invest In Podcast, the show where we help you learn how to make more money through real estate and other passive investments. We're your hosts, Zach Hoyt and Eric Richner, entrepreneurs, investors, and the guys behind Maverick Asher Capital. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, buckle up, because we're taking you on a journey to help you achieve the lifestyle of your dreams.
Now let's hit the road.
All right, and welcome back to the Invest In Podcast, where we uncover tons of ways to achieve the life of your dreams. I'm your host, Zach Hoyt, and today I'm joined by my awesome Chief Operating Officer, Kevin Jones. You'll be excited to get your notebooks out. We're going to give you lots of fun information so that you can take some good action and make informed decisions. So just a little, in case you missed our last episode where we provided a broad overview of the real estate investment landscape in general, I'd really recommend going there, starting over there, and just coming back to this episode, because this is going to be a more in-depth one. And so it's really going to be speaking to potentially future park owners and anyone that's looking to passively invest in all of this. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions, we love getting your comments either on social media, on YouTube, anywhere, and we can reach out to us and we'll give you some things in the end where you can talk with us directly. We'd love chatting with all of you. So specifically this week, we're going to continue that conversation of doing a deep dive of some of the really commonly confused sets of investments: mobile home parks and RV parks. Because so many people get those mixed up. They hear one, they think the other, and they're vastly different in the two. So I'm going to kick it over to you, Kevin, where you can just start to paint the picture. Let's visually explain to this audience and everyone listening, what is a mobile home park versus an RV park?
Yeah, so mobile home parks been around for a long time. They're essentially, you have like a single wide or double wide home that is moved, but once it's put in place, it typically doesn't move after that. You know, they stay there for years. It's a small home, usually like 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, and a lot of people will start building up little structures around it, and it's pretty much semi-permanent. But an RV, you get a camper. There's something you see on wheels. You'll see them driving around on the highway all the time, going from place to place. And they're usually parked on outside someone's home when they're not in use, or driven, to the different campsites. And those are your temporary ones. They'll stay at a place for maybe a weekend, or sometimes there'll be longer term ones for a few months. But you typically don't see them anywhere in one place for like longer than 6 months.
That makes sense. So that's a good picture in general. So it's funny because the name mobile home in general, you'd think that the home is mobile. And yeah, it's mobile. And like you said, where you can drag it from one location to another, but then you leave it there. It's not like it's moving around very frequently, where these RVs, these motor coaches, these fifth wheels, those are all names for RVs in general. Dragged around, they're driven around. You're not driving a mobile home anywhere. So these RVs, they actually are mobile. Now, here's the thing that gets confusing too, is because some mobile home parks have RVs on them, but they're more treated like a mobile home in that one site. In that, like you were saying, this camper, it's plunked down. It's set there, and then it hasn't been moved for years. And in fact, that owner of that RV that's at that mobile home park, and for everyone tracking with this, the owner of that RV could be building a porch on it, or a covered structure, or ends, and such that you would literally have to disassemble this whole structure, this whatever it is that they're building, this covering, porches sometimes with their own electric built into that. Like, I've seen all of these different things. Sometimes you would have to disassemble that to even pull the RV out of there. So that's where it is confusing in general. So that's why we wanted to start out just with that visualization of what technically is a mobile home versus an RV, and then understanding that these things can blur, because then we're going to transition a little bit more into talking about those pros and those cons of a mobile home park versus an RV park. And again, like we mentioned, the mobile home park, it could have RV spots on it, and an RV park could have mobile home spots on it where it's more permanent. And so this is where, of course, there's lots of confusion, but what we really have to distinguish is the difference. Like a mobile home park might be more along the lines of people that don't have as much money. It's a little more affordable housing. It's people that can stay there for some time, but it's something more that you got to watch out about the attitude that's at the mobile home parks. Because I don't know if you've ever seen the show Trailer Park Boys. I mean, and if you haven't, you're not missing much. I mean, it's lowbrow comedy, but for me, it was almost an education of what is a mobile home park. But I mean, it's a certain type of mobile home park that's in this series that you can get on any wherever you're looking at them, TV shows and all of that. But, you know, there's lots of complications that you see at these mobile home parks that you wouldn't experience at an RV park in general. And so that's going to be this next step that we're going to talk about, is really going over all those different pros and those cons. Because whoever's listening, wherever you're looking to maybe buy a mobile home park or an RV park, or you're looking to invest in one of those, it's just really important that you have the right conception in your mind, because they are not the same. They are not operated the same. They shouldn't be operated the same. And they have definitely different benefits and different drawbacks for each of those operational models. So whichever one you decide to do and own, whichever one you decide to invest in, we just want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. So let's start out, Kevin, with mobile home parks, and we'll just frame it and talk about mobile home parks, their pros and cons and things. And then we'll go over RV parks, and then we'll kind of tie it all together, come full circle.
Sure. Yeah, so for mobile home parks, again, you set it down and you're going to stay there. So it's a reliable, sticky income. Once they sit down, you know, typically 3 years is the minimum that someone will put their home down, but usually, you know, 20 years or something, because it costs a lot of money to move those homes. You can't just move it yourself. You need to get like a semi truck to move them. So they're going to be reliable, steady income. Also, you don't need a whole lot of marketing, because people will find you. You know, you're not looking for, you know, high turnover rates. You know, once you get your park filled, it's going to stay filled for a long time. And when you need new people, they'll come out and find you. But it is also recession resistant. So affordable housing demand usually stays strong consistently. So that's another good pro, is that, you know, recession hits, you know, you're going to be resistant to it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And everyone, of course, if you're watching the markets right now, there's a lot of concerns about recession in general, turmoil in the market. Are there tariffs? Are there not tariffs? What's happening? How that affects every darn thing. And you see how someone sneezing on the other side of the country or in our country will end up affecting the whole frickin' world. And so that's a real important point, that is, we all are looking for something as an investment vehicle, and even as something that we own. We want something that's reliable. We want something that can last the test of time. And that's really, that's something that's super critical, because we want to preserve our capital. We want to make sure that it's making money, yes, but we certainly want to make sure that we're not hurt if the economic conditions change. And what I would say is that both of these parks, these mobile home parks and these RV parks, they're both very good if there is ever a recession. Like Kevin was saying, yeah, these people stay a really long time. I think the average that I saw was about 15 years, because, I mean, once these people, usually the mobile home owners, they'll buy their own and they'll bring it there. I don't know if you see that. And sometimes there's just mobile homes that are already there. Someone can come in and they can do a rent to own agreement with them. They could rent the mobile home in and of itself. There's lots of possibilities, but they're always paying a park fee on top of everything. So it's basically like an HOA. So you're living in an HOA type of situation where, yeah, I like that as an owner, regardless. I like control. So that's another thing that we have with all of this, is we have control. That's super important with all of these types of models that you might not get with some other things. Living in a city, for instance, with a single family home, if you're trying to do a short-term rental, you don't get that type of control. They can dictate what you can do and what you can't do. But Yeah, as far as mobile home parks are concerned, it's great that they're there a long time. It's great that you get that reliable income, but that can create problems for you. Like, all right, what if this is a terrible tenant? I mean, I'm sure you've lived in some places, Kevin, where you've had terrible neighbors or in any of these regards, right?
Yeah, and that brings me to the cons of mobile home parks, and
Mm.
there's several of them.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have lower ceiling on profits in mobile home parks versus RV parks. The rent is gonna be low. Sometimes it's capped by local politics. If you're affordable housing, it's gonna be low, but it is steady. But it's much lower than you can get from RV parks. Then you have the what we call permanent blight risk. So you were talking about earlier with building porches and building fences and like the permanent structures that they're building around everything. They'll even build like extra little rooms onto their single wide home that's completely unpermitted. They're not doing anything to code, and it often looks very junky and like their uncle came over and just kind of hammers the stuff together. It does not look good at all. So you also get junk collections, and I have all this in the mobile home park that I'm in now. Is like I see the junk collections, I see the unpermitted add-ons, I see the porches, like all this stuff. It's very very common, and that brings us to the cleanup. So you said that they obviously don't have a whole lot of money, and sometimes they lose their job or whatever happens to their financials, they can't afford to live there anymore. So what do? They can't sell really, so they just kind of leave it there, and it's now your problem. And it's now you got this junked up mobile home on your concrete that you have to get rid of, and it's trashy. It's expensive to get rid of. You got to demolish it and pull it out, and you got to do lots of stuff just to get rid of it so that you can rent it out to somebody else. And if they're not paying, don't want to leave, well, they have high tenant protection. So they are
Yeah.
tenants, and there's a lot of red tape where, as a landlord, you don't have a whole lot of flexibility, especially here recently with COVID, where you weren't allowed to evict anybody in some places. Evictions are huge legal headaches, and they can stretch it out for a long time. And it's just a whole lot of lost income and headaches you just don't really want to deal with.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the biggest things. It's all great and it's gravy. It's set on autopilot. That's cool. They're there for 15 years. Wow, that's the Ronco. What is that? The TV commercial where you set it and you forget it. The Ronco like rotisserie something. It's great. It'll make your meal for you. These will pay the asset off for you over time. These mobile homes can, but it's until things go bad. And if you guys have ever owned any other real estate, it's great until it goes bad. And it's when it goes bad, how bad can it go? And just like you were saying, Kevin, holy smokes, if there's an eviction that has to happen, then there's a certain time frame that takes, and there's rules that you got to follow, and they're state dependent. So if you want to, whatever you're trying to do this for, investing or actively owning any of these parks, you're doing it for whatever your purpose in life is, your why. Maybe it's to have the freedom to do something, maybe it's to provide for your family and to have them all feel comfortable, for you to sleep well at night. But then if all of a sudden COVID happens, like Kevin mentioned, and then the rules change, they get skewed a little bit. They get longer. You got to give people longer to pay. Well, we saw a lot of issues where landlords were losing their houses because the tenants would refuse to pay. They couldn't be kicked out. Sometimes, like even in California, it was for like 9 months, a year. I've heard tons of horror stories. And even after they're able to get evicted, they still have to keep their belongings waiting for a certain amount of time. It's just crazy. I grew up in upstate New York, and the laws there, I've heard terrible horror stories where it's just, you don't want that to happen. Nobody wants the bad things to happen in general. That's cool, but we got to be protected as landlords in those situations. And I get that we want to protect and we want to honor the people that are living there, but holy smokes, when they're deciding not to pay, they're choosing not to pay. There's people that do that, and there's people that are professional gamers of the system. I've seen that happen many times over. It's like, man, if you put all that effort into learning all these rules to skirt all these things into actually applying for a job, applying yourself, learning something, where could you be in life? Yet you happen to be like the local expert for all your other friends of how to stay in your home the longest and to just hop from one home to the next home. It's serial evictors at that point. And sometimes people don't even go through with the full eviction, and that hurts the next landlord because they have no clue that there's an eviction there. So dealing with evictions is usually a part of real estate life. But I'm going to say that that's something that you can avoid with RV parks. Ooh la la. So let's transition now and talk about RV parks and why we chose them, love them, and much rather would have them in our investment portfolio than a mobile home park. So, Kevin,
Oh
what are
yeah.
some of those pros about RV parks?
Yeah, when I first started looking into which one I wanted to go into, I looked at each one, RV parks and mobile home parks. And initially I thought I was going to go mobile home parks, but then I started seeing all the upsides of RV parks and I'm like, what was I thinking? No, this is the way to go. So first you have like very high income potential compared to mobile home parks. I mean, there's dynamic pricing, which if you don't know what that is, it's the more full you get, like the higher your occupancy, the higher the rates go. But if your occupancy goes down, you lower the pricing. So it keeps things moving so you don't have a static price.
Just
There's
just
high,
to collect, just to expand on that, it's basically like Uber surge. Like
right.
at 2 a.m. when everyone is drunk and trying to drive home, why are the prices so high? Even though there's tons of supply of Uber drivers, there's lots of demand. And so now we have that dynamic pricing, like Kevin was talking about, where we can continually increase the price as we get more people that are interested in there. Much like you go for an Airbnb, similarly, in high season, it costs more. Well, guess what? There's computer algorithms that take care of that right now. So you don't
Uh-huh.
even have to think about that
Right.
as much. And it's super powerful. Yeah. So that's a wonderful thing where you're not adjusting like that with mobile home parks for sure.
And you're getting essentially hotel style returns because you have daily rates, you have weekly rates, and monthly rates. Typically, don't have yearly rates with the RV parks because you want something that's high turnover. Then you also have multiple revenue streams. I mean, there's the pads, sure, but a lot of these RV parks have stores within them. They have vending machines. And people rent out their Wi-Fi. And there's propane. Every RV needs propane, so you have machines set up to sell that. You have a marina. There's boat slips. There's glamping. There's all sorts of different things that you can set up within your RV park, your little mini city, and have people buy all sorts of stuff, and they'll be happy to do it because they don't want to get on their truck and drive out into the city and find the store wherever that is because they don't know where anything's at and try and grab some stuff and bring it back. They
Well,
just want to relax and get everything
yeah.
right there, one place.
Well, let's even expand on that a little bit more if you don't mind, because yeah, they might have a truck that they can detach from the trailer. What if they have a motor coach where they have to drive their whole 30-foot thing to go to a store? Good
Yeah.
luck doing that, right? And you think, well, maybe they brought all that stuff with them. Maybe, but usually they forget something. They don't have a big enough fridge for a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons where they're going to need some basic supplies and they're there to have fun. So they're
Yeah.
there to spend money, a lot of the times. And because of all of those things, an RV park can capture that, where a mobile home park, these people are living a little more affordably. So they've got their vehicle right there. It's parked in their driveway. They're going to take a quick drive to the store, get whatever they want. Same thing if you had a multifamily building or anything. Yeah, you might have a vending machine for those nights when people are coming home with the munchies from whatever. That's fine, but it's not a big revenue stream like it is for an RV park, because those people, it's a different type of lifestyle that they're there for. And so, yeah, lots and lots of potential for multiple streams of income. That's a great one. And actually, a lot of owners that currently have RV parks, they're not even offering some of those things. So it's an
Yeah.
easy value add to just add hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size, of course, but adding a significant chunk with basically no other overhead other than stocking some of these things, which your people always have some downtime anyway. So real low hanging fruit, and some of them even, right, Kevin? You've told me we're incorporating right now some of these ice machines where literally you just hook them up to a
Yeah.
water supply. You don't have to stock it like those ice machines you see at the gas station.
Right. Yeah, you just plug it in. It needs power, water, and like a drain. And that's it. If you have a bag system, you can refill it with bags every once in a while. But most people just hook up their chest right to it and then just dump the ice right into their cooler, and off they go. And those things are cash cows.
Mm-hmm.
They make tons of money. And then there's other streams as well, like you're saying, depending on the size of the park. A lot of people don't think about having an arcade. They're like, oh, I don't want to buy a bunch of machines. Well, you don't have to. There's what's called operators that will come in. They'll buy all the equipment. They'll put it into your space, whatever you have, and then they'll give you a percentage of all the revenue generated from it. So you don't even have any risk there. The operator takes all the risk. You just give them a space to put it, and there you go. You now have an arcade at zero cost to you. So lots and lots of revenue streams. Another, great pro for RV parks is being able to screen your guests. I mean, it is pretty easy to get the right type of people. And when I say that, I mean, like, you don't want your RV park to look like a mobile home park. So a lot of parks put in stuff like your RV or trailer needs to be 10 years or newer. Okay. It needs to be well kept. And no pop-ups, which that's a type of trailer, that has a little pop-up, really small, but some people don't like the look of them. So you can you're not, screening based on the person themselves. You're screening on the equipment they're bringing in. So you don't want something that looks all, broken and in disrepair coming into your RV park. You want something that looks nice, because a lot of people, like you said, are there to have fun and relax. They don't want to come over and be like, ooh, what's that eyesore? So it's really easy to screen guests. But let's say that some guests kind of slip through and you want them out. You don't have to do evictions in an RV park.
Ooh la
They're not
la.
tenants. They are not tenants. They are not. They are guests. They're licensees. You just call the police or the tow truck and you get them the heck out of there. It is so easy to get rid of tenants that you don't want. Ask them to leave, and if they don't want to go, boom, just a phone call away and they are out.
Man, if
Okay.
I could have dragged some of my tenants out when I wanted to, that would be great. And I even hear stories of old landlords that say that they would take the doors off the houses, the front doors off of houses, and be like, what are you going to do? Right. Obviously, if you're listening, or maybe not obviously, but you cannot do that anymore legally on a single family home when they're there in a longer term lease. But yeah, we can definitely drag out people that are not paying at an RV park. So love that. Right. And like you were saying, Kevin, being able to screen the different types of vehicles, what it does inherently, the RVs, when we screen them, it basically limits the type of person that's coming in there, in that they have to have enough money for a newer vehicle. And there's some RV parks that are just for Airstreams. There's some that are just for motor coaches. And so it's a little more niched down. And I'm not saying that that's a good or a bad thing. It really depends on your specific area and the type of clientele and the type of park, the resort, who knows that you're curating in that place. But the point is that you can curate it. And so these people have maybe $200,000 invested into their rig, $300,000 easily invested into all of this. So this is not like just someone who decides that, like, oh, hey, I'm going to save up a couple paychecks and I'm going to get this thing and travel around. Not at all, right? So it's a completely different type of clientele. And so it's different people and their character that you tend to deal with in that situation.
Yeah. And another benefit of RV parks is it's really asset light, meaning that you're renting concrete,
Mm.
essentially. And you can have bare bones where you don't even have any structures at all in your RV park if you want to run it that way. Um, a lot of people put a clubhouse, you have a place to check in, but you can basically scale it to what you want. You don't need a whole lot of structures. Just one is fine for everything you have, but you can scale it up if you want tiny homes. You can buy those and put them in if you want, but not necessary. Whatever assets you want, you can put in there. And like I said earlier, with like the arcades, there's models where you can get an operator to pay for everything and bring it in there, put it in there for you, so you don't even own the assets. You're just getting profit from it and renting it out. There's RVs that you can rent out that you don't need to own. Have somebody else own it, and you just bring it into your park, and you are facilitating the rental of it, and you get a cut for it. So
Yeah.
without a whole lot of investing out of your own pocket, you're able to use other people's assets and get a profit from it just by providing the concrete. Now, with that concrete, it's very versatile. I mean, if it's not working, like if you have just a concrete pads all through your park and you're not renting them all, your occupancy is low, and you're reading the news and seeing all these different shows that are coming up about tiny homes and yurts and glamping, it's really easy to just pivot and boom, now we got tiny homes. We got more of those, or yurts, or glamping. You can just move those things into your park, move them around within your park. You can do all sorts of stuff. It's very versatile in doing that because it's already has all the utilities set up, and these things are not that expensive to add in. There's also really lower regulations with RV parks. So a lot of these things that we've been mentioning, you mentioned mobile homes and RVs. They have completely different standards for laws, like the HUD code, Housing Urban Development Code, versus the ANSII code. So ANSII is for vehicles, which is an RV, anything that's on a chassis. So they are a lot more laxed in standards. And when you're dealing with a RV park, they're not so worried about all these different housing regulations when you bring in new stuff. They're vehicles. You're just going to park it and you're going to move it out. Even tiny homes are considered vehicles. So it's real versatile, real easy, low regulation to bring those things in and out. And then finally, the flood zones. So there's a lot of properties out there that you just cannot build on because it's in a flood zone. What are you going to do? That it's a useless property. Maybe you could like put a bunch of stilts and build something up above the ground, above the flood zone, but you're really limited in what you can do. Not so with RV parks. You can build whatever you want as far as the pads inside a flood zone because they typically have a regulation of as long as you can unhook your RV and get out of there within an hour, you're clear. You're able to go in there, and they're just worried about the safety of people being able to drive out of the flood zone. And boom, you can build your whole park within a flood zone and use all that property. So you can buy property pretty cheap that's in flood zones and make a huge profit out of it. And after the flood is done, you just hose it off and boom,
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? I don't know if you guys have ever had a renter and they left it in the house after they were evicted or even not evicted. They just leave it normal. They like, at the end of their lease. And perhaps they didn't clean everything up to your checklist standards. Yes, you have a deposit that you can hold, but I'm sure some of you have had a renter that did a lot more damage than your deposit that you held from them. I know that I sure as heck have, right? And I do many different things to try and mitigate that. But just being able to hose off concrete or let Mother Nature hose it off, how nice is that? So, yeah, definitely tons of good pros with this, and that glamping that Kevin was talking about, whether it was a tiny home on wheels on a chassis, or it's all the fun different glamping things that you can do with an RV park. It's a little more difficult to do it with a mobile home park because you have to also keep in mind the mobile home park community is more of a long-term type of place. So they know each other. They know who they like. They know who they don't like, who the annoying neighbors are, all of those things. And when someone is coming in and you're trying to mix glamping with that, it's not going to work because the glamping are temporary people. So the mobile home park people are going to look at it like they're outsiders. So the glamping people are outsiders invading their town, essentially, right? So if you do decide to add some glamping, it's going to have to be in a completely different separate section. And that's the way to handle like a long-term section and a short-term section. And so while it's possible, it's just a little more difficult. But again, just to draw a good comparison in the positive way between these two, both of these models, these parks, they both have very low operational costs, which is phenomenal compared to multifamily, where maybe typically it's like 50% of your revenue, your occupancy and everything will go towards expenses, where it's more like a 25% mark of occupancy to cover your basic expenses with an RV park. And similarly, I think a mobile home park as well. Both of these models, you basically have someone else taking care of their own house, their space, their toilet, their everything with that. So you don't have to go in and refresh it every 10 years, 20 years, whatever the heck. No. They leave, they bring something back. Or for the mobile home park, well, they are going to get older and older, but you don't have that turnover that's the same. So typically that's just you're going to remove that mobile home and you'll put a new one on, or someone will bring a new one in there. But both of those, you don't usually have to deal with much of turning them over unless it's a park owned home, but definitely not with an RV park. They drag them in and they drag them out or drive them out. Another great thing is they're both very recession resistant. I mean, my gosh, we talked about how mobile home parks are very affordable. Affordable housing is an issue. So, there's going to be people that will push towards that end. Well, guess what? RV parks, similarly, if there's a recession, people aren't going to be flying across the world to go to those destinations. They're going to drive somewhere. And right now, these things are booming, these RV parks. Let's get back to nature as opposed to being really sucked into all the technology all the time. Let's connect with our family. Let's make some awesome memories. Maybe go to a water park. But doing something like that, where it's a drivecation, I don't know if that's a word, but that is now. A drivecation versus a flycation, it makes it just more affordable. And heaven forbid, like Kevin was saying, if someone isn't renting out any of these pads, these concrete pads with all the utilities already there, you can put that little glamping unit on there. You can put a tiny home. You could even build a tinier than tiny home or a larger than tiny home, and it can turn into long-term housing. So you can pivot very easily. You don't see a multifamily building being able to pivot to a commercial building or an industrial building or anything like that. You're stuck with that typology. Not the case with us in RV parks. You can very easily pivot to that lower income model of an RV park or a mobile home park, from an RV park to a type of long-term mobile home park. And of course, all of these, usually there's more land that's around them, so you can do development, add more units, and usually it's very fractional amount of extra operational costs in order to have those extra units. So it's almost like just boku bucks and cash at that point. So love all those aspects. Very secure, very safe, very future proof. Makes me sleep very well at night, as opposed to the stock market, up, down, crypto, left, right. Who knows what the heck is going on? No. Real estate appreciates, pays you in your sleep, and is all wonderful. So we just went through tons of different pros, right? We could probably go on and on a little bit more, but to keep things short, let's also talk about the bad side of it, the cons of an RV park, because there's always two sides to every coin. So what are some of these cons? Let's be real with everyone.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some negatives, like there isn't anything. So seasonal revenue. I'm sure most people are familiar with the Mason-Dixon line. You got the United States, you just kind of cut it in half almost, and everything above that gets really cold in the winter, and typically no one really goes in those types of RV parks during the winter. They do make enough money during the summer to make up for it and still make a profit, but they're generally ghost towns in the winter above that. But where do they go? They go south. Below the Mason-Dixon line, you get all those snowbirds. They'll come down and start filling up the RV parks in the winter. It's still a little bit lower occupancy during the winter times, but it's just like you have highs and lows. During the summer, you're always going to have really high occupancy, make tons of money, and then in the winter, you're going to have a lower occupancy. And it's just about knowing that you're going to have that and then planning around it, because that's when you can do all your maintenance. You can expand. You can do all sorts of stuff because you don't have a high occupancy and a bunch of customers getting in your way and doing stuff. You have the extra time to deal with those. So it's not all bad with a seasonality. But it also requires ongoing marketing. So there's tons of RV parks out there. Not a whole lot of people know about them or where they're at, what they offer. So you do have to do some advertising, some SEOs, partnerships, have an online presence. You just got to put yourself out there. Okay, so people can find you. Then there's operations. So that's kind of my wheelhouse. I'm the chief operating officer. It's very operations heavy. So you got the cleanliness aspect. You got to have cleaners clean stuff. You got hospitality. You got tech systems. Then your grounds management. These people aren't mowing their own lawns. You got to do that per pad. And there's ways around it. I got some great strategies on how to even save on taxes and do all sorts of stuff without any cost to you to get these things done, and using your lack of occupancy as a benefit with operations. There's plenty of programs out there and apps and websites and everything to help you with operations. So it's not like you're going to drown none of these things, but you do have to know about them and how to use them in order to take advantage of them. If you don't have that, then you're going to sink a bit. So it is operations heavy, but it's manageable. Then you have the higher capex per pad. So you have premium pads that need concrete and hookups, landscaping, all sorts of stuff. And then you have kind of the lower end where it's just dirt. So depending on which RV park you have or resort you have, you're going to have different levels of upkeep with all these pads that you're going to have. And it's just about knowing what that is, what you're willing to deal with, and putting a plan in place to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest thing is planning, right? And failing to plan is the basically planning to fail, right? That's the saying. And I always say that, if you don't have a plan, then you're obviously going to fail. But even when you do have a plan, the one thing that I know that's going to happen, the only thing I know for sure is that it's not going to go 100% according to your plan. So have backups for everything that you're doing. And that's the old Boy Scout adage, the engineer in me, all those things is always be prepared for all those different unknowns. Yeah, that's great stuff that you're sharing, Kevin. Yeah. And so above the Mason-Dixon line, below the Mason-Dixon line, shucks, what if we were right on the Mason-Dixon line? Seems like that could be a good spot to have good RV parks in general, a little bit of the best of both worlds. But then even so, all right, even if you have a nice place in Florida, it's only good half of the year, or a nice place in Michigan, it's only good half of the year. But the challenge to the operators is to say, all right, is your seasonal income enough? Are you okay with that? Is that good for you? Do you want to take basically the off year, the off season off so that you can go travel and have fun? Because that's like the whole point of what we're doing is to live and not just work ourselves to death. Or you find something where there's an awesome way to attract people to your location in that off season. So for instance, in Michigan, it snows. Well, gosh, why don't we just plan on something that's fun in the snow? And then all those people that are like, oh, I've never seen snow before, so much snow. Local people are like, this kind of sucks. But people that have never seen that before, like, wow, look at these fun things that we can do in the snow, sledding and snowball fights. And our kids have never seen this before. So just, you have to be creative with RV parks where you're not creative at all with mobile home parks. But I love that personally. I'm a very creative person. I need that creative outlet, building things as an architect, designing things, and just being a child, because we're all kids. We all started as kids. Why do people lose that insight of life and the way they live? So do that thing, have some fun, and go and enjoy an RV park, or own it and make sure everyone enjoys it. But yeah, spot on with marketing. You've got to have great marketing. So if you don't want to market, if you don't know someone that is marketing, you might want to think twice about owning an RV park, because it is a constant marketing effort to bring people in. And so it's not just how do I market, it's how many ways do you market to maximize that, because you want to drive people as much as possible. Kevin said wonderful things about different ways of saving and what he would call ops as a service, operations as a service. He hinted at some of that. Well, check us out, because one of the next few episodes we'll be talking about ops as a service. And you can even come to our meetup where we have Kevin as a speaker talking about that as well. We're RV park owners, developers, investors, and everyone. We meet once a month virtually to connect with other people in the space. And he's going to be sharing lots of tips and tricks that most people don't know, but everyone in the industry really needs to know in order to not only just survive, but thrive, right? And so, yeah, I'm very excited for that. That's going to be actually the night that this podcast comes out. And it's the third Thursday of every month. But check it out. You'll be able to find that and some of our stuff as well. If you want to join that meetup, it's free. We just love elevating each other and sharing tips and tricks and having great speakers come in and share what they know. So awesome. I think that's phenomenal, right? Really great stuff. I really hope you enjoyed this. And probably now I hope you've got a better idea of the difference between a mobile home and an RV, and then a mobile home park and an RV park. And you probably know someone that's investing in one of those when they might want to be investing in the other. Really, I'm saying people that invest in mobile home parks when they really should be investing in RV parks. Because who doesn't want twice the income? I mean, if you're investing passively, isn't that the whole point? Twice the income. And hey, there's one other thing, one other perk that neither of us have mentioned so far. And it's the fact that you're not going to go and travel with your family to visit a mobile home park. I don't think you're really going to want to do that unless you want to volunteer some of your time to clean things up. But with an RV park, you're curating an awesome experience where you've got memories. And heaven forbid, you even create an RV resort like we are doing, which is going to be the most technologically advanced RV destination in the world. And you better believe that I'm going to love going there every year with my family. Kevin's going to love going there, inviting friends and everyone and our investors to come on into that so that they can make memories with their family. And that's just something that's really fills my heart that no other asset class in real estate can do in the same way. So I frickin' love that. That's the icing on the cake. If everything else didn't convince you, that one certainly would convince you. All right, just to add that a little bit more. Let's go and enjoy the thing that we're making money on. Why not? So just a real quick recap, we learned some of the physical differences between mobile home parks and RV parks. We learned the pros and the cons between the two different types of real estate assets. And most importantly, if you're going to invest in either of these, know the difference and find a great operator. If you're not going to own it and operate it yourself, you must find a great operator. All right, so that's it. If these topics interest you and you want to learn more, stay in touch. Look in the show notes to become an official Invest In Insider and continue the journey with us. And if you're looking to chat with me, if you want to, directly about some investments and learn how you can invest in this awesome asset class, you're going to see a link in the show notes where you can schedule a one-on-one discovery call with me and Maverick Asher Capital, where we can talk about all the fun things and all your goals about how to achieve them and make wonderful memories with your family to boot. How wonderful. Make sure you join in next time for more ways to invest in your mind, your life, and your bank account. Be well, everyone. That's a wrap for this episode of the Invest In podcast. We hope you gained valuable insights to fuel your investment journey.
If you found this episode helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your support helps us bring more insider knowledge from the top real estate and investment minds.
And if you're ready to take your investments to the next level, follow us on social media at Go Invest In on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere for more expert tips, behind-the-scenes content, and exclusive updates.
Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep investing, keep building, and we'll see you on the road.